Breaking now at 9:37 on a Monday morning, May 6th. The judge in the Trump trial in New York, Juan Merchan, who imposed these ridiculous gag orders on President Trump and fined him $1,000 per violation last week, says the fines are not working and will consider jail time for Trump on contempt of court charges. He says the gag order violations are a direct attack on the rule of law. Well, almost everyone who knows anything about law and the rule of law says that the gag order he imposed on President Trump are a direct attack on the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, free speech. When everybody else can talk and the defendant can't. So now they're going to put Trump in jail. I have, oddly enough, a former political prisoner on the line right now to talk to us to find out what it's like to have your freedom of speech violated by the so-called rule of the lawless in places of power, like in seats of judges and in prosecutors. Tim Hale, a January 6th prisoner, political prisoner, joins us on the Scott Sloan Show. Gary Jeff with Tim Hale. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you for having me on.
So, I mean, you're going to have, good morning. You're going to have something else in common with Donald Trump if Judge Merchan gets his way and puts him in jail on contempt of court charges for violating his unconstitutional gag order. Your thoughts?
It's actually not very different from January 6th. They prosecuted us for First Amendment demonstrations, and then they threatened us for speaking out about it. You know, they not only denied it, like they withheld our evidence, for instance, and if we tried to go to the public about it, a lot of people were penalized. You got people who got longer sentences for talking about their cases. This is pure weaponization of law, and it's an absolute violation of his civil rights. Why shouldn't he talk out about the people who were trying to destroy his life? This is America.
It's amazing that this is happening in the United States of America, and yet the Biden DOJ, or the Department of Injustice, as I like to refer to it, continues to use this as their tool to trump down any kind of or tramp down any kind of dissent, and to just, when people won't shut up, just put them away. I'm waiting for them to come in this studio and take me out in handcuffs for this commentary. It's unbelievable that this is happening in this country. Tim, you served this country in our military, and you spent how long in jail for being at the Capitol on January 6, 2021? How long did you serve in jail?
I was incarcerated for 3 years for being at the Capitol, and with no violent charges either. At all.
So
this is the future. This is going to happen to anybody soon.
Let me ask
anybody who supports Trump. Just to be fair.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. It's all one-sided. It's unequal protection under the law. It's exactly flies in the face of what we're supposed to be protected from our government, according to what the founding fathers set out, and they've turned it on its head. Let me ask you first, what was your motivation to be at the Capitol on January 6th in the first place, Tim?
I was just there for a speech. I went there in a suit and a tie. They tried to, make me out to be a domestic terrorist after that. They went through my phone to find offensive memes, to make me look like I was this, far-right extremist. I was an internet troll. They tried to use that against me. So here are your other First Amendment violations. I was there in a suit and a tie. If I was there for a revolution, I wouldn't have worn Men's Warehouse. I guarantee it.
You'll look good in it. I guarantee it, especially when they're carting you off to jail. Now, let me ask you this. You went to President Trump's speech at the Ellipse.
Correct.
So you went to the Capitol when that was over. You marched to the Capitol grounds, or you walked to the Capitol grounds, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, like, a lot of stuff went down at the Capitol, but most people didn't know any of that was going to happen. Because by the time people showed up to the Capitol, there were barriers that were knocked over by guys like Ray Epps and stuff like that, and his crew. And that happened a half hour before people like me even showed up. So thousands and thousands of people just poured in thinking it was just going to be a protest. They didn't even know they were on restricted grounds. So, it was clearly a setup. And it was also a way for them to target Trump by attacking us. I think they planned this years ahead of time.
What were you charged with to be incarcerated for 3 years?
I mean, initially it was just like stupid misdemeanors like trespassing. But once Biden got into office after the inauguration, then that's when they started indicting people. And they basically took this Enron era charge called 18 U.S.C. 1512. It's tampering with a witness, but they used this subsection that was added from the Enron era called obstruction of an official proceeding, which has to do with destroying documents. Somehow the DOJ created this ridiculous legal theory that interrupting the vote count was somehow obstruction of justice and obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress. Therefore, they could charge us with this ridiculous felony charge that's never been applied, and it carries up to 20 years in prison. And not everybody's getting 20 years, but you saw how they treated, say, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. They're trying to get every drop of blood they can get out of us. They're trying to get blood out of Iraq. So, and by the way, I was in jail with informants who confessed that they were at the Capitol to get out of trouble for drug conspiracies from 2020. So they were actually at the Capitol to get out of trouble. And these are also the same defendants who said, well, these are the same defendants who had 1512 first upheld in federal court. And this charge, by the way, is now being used against President Trump, this obstruction charge. Hopefully the Supreme Court will toss it out. They just had a hearing on the 16th. But it's important people understand why I think that this was a setup, not just for us, but also for Trump. That charge, that charge being used against us and against Trump was first upheld in court for federal informants. That makes this look very suspicious.
Now, the informants you were in jail with, they were there to get out of trouble for. How were they going to get out of trouble for being at the Capitol on January 6th?
There were a lot of actors at the Capitol who were there in costumes with recording equipment, and they were basically there to promote the insurrection narrative. And so it's very interesting. People don't see the nuance here. They see like the same 20-second clip of a window being broken for 3 years. But they don't realize that the crowd is full of predominantly just regular Trump supporters, but there are also a lot of assets in the crowd. And so people, there were Antifa there. There were undercover feds. And there were a lot of suspicious people who've been outed since then for basically being patsies. People who went there basically to stir up trouble, to incite chaos, and really to get other people in trouble. It was basically entrapment.
You mean like the 25%, as much as 25% of the so-called student protesters that we've seen on college campuses for the last week and a half are actually paid by someone to be there and stir up trouble? You mean like that?
Yeah, kind of like that. Or when I went to Trump's inauguration in 2017 and there was all that rioting and chaos there and people had pre-made signs, that sort of thing too. Yeah.
It is all about Trump derangement syndrome. Why are the establishment powers that be, especially now during the Biden regime, so afraid of Donald Trump and his supporters?
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Fanatics Fest NYC takes over the Javits Center August 16th to 18th. Join us for a powerhouse event with over 100 athletes, including Tom Brady, Derek Jeter, and the Manning brothers. Catch a star-studded Knicks panel featuring Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. Dive into interactive sports challenges like the 40-yard dash and score exclusive Topps card drops. Don't miss out. Visit fanaticsfest.com for the full athlete lineup. Be part of the first ever immersive sports fan festival at Fanatics Fest.
Oh, I think it's.
Are they afraid of? Are they afraid of losing power?
America first. Yeah, I think it's about the fact that the people who control the levers of power don't want to give them up. And the second there's a little hiccup in 2016, that's when they start losing their minds and melting down. It's not about his tweets. It's about the fact they're scared of losing power. They fear the guy. They will do anything to get rid of him. And it's the most un-American thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, let's see. It looks like this judge in New York, who's obviously should have recused himself at the beginning of the trial since he's a Biden donor and his daughter is being paid by the Democratic National Committee. It looks like he's going to try and put Trump in jail now on contempt of court charges for a gag order that never should have been issued. So we're watching that. How about the difference of treatment for the spoiled brats on college campuses that are supposedly pro-Palestine protesters, even though they're talking about the Green New Deal and any number of things that the left always guards as close, near, and dear to their hearts. The treatment of them when they are arrested, when they're finally stopped from breaking into buildings and, violence against other people and threatening other people, intimidating Jewish students, the treatment that they're receiving from the legal system as opposed to seriously concerned American citizens in a suit and tie at the Ellipse watching a speech and being on the Capitol grounds. I don't see any of those protesters going to jail for 3 years, but I guess they're not really threatening the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. Is that the difference?
Yeah, that's about it. What's interesting is, you talked about what the founding fathers wanted. It's even more than that. Like, if you look at the 14th Amendment from after the Civil War, you have this idea of selective prosecution, the idea that we're supposed to have not just due process, but equal protection. It's like, we can do this. We can do this dance all day. It's like, look at the Antifa riots, like the Portland riots. One of the biggest legal arguments we made is that this was selective prosecution, that even if the laws were legitimate, and they're not, they're being applied with an evil eye and an uneven hand. You look at the BLM riots from a year before January 6th. I remember when we were locked up, you had environmental protesters who were rioting in D.C. and like ramming bike racks into cops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You see this all the time. And now it's not... It's what the most disturbing thing is that this is going to reach levels that aren't even political anymore. You got that Daniel Penny guy who was just trying to be a citizen, from what I could tell, and they arrested him for choking out a bum on a subway. Which I'm not happy anybody died there, but they're going to use the law. This isn't just lawfare. They're going to weaponize the law against anybody who's just trying to do normal American citizen behavior. It's insane. The country's going to be destroyed by this.
Well, it's well on the way, especially when you see the expensive, all look the same tent set up. This is orchestrated from somewhere. Like you said, the ready-made signs at Trump's inauguration in 2017, and the instant ready-to-go signs that are all similar. This is not grassroots. This is not somebody getting out some cardboard and doing some kind of project at home with their magic markers. making these signs. They had them ready to go for the Palestinian protests and for, whatever protest you can think of that errs on the side of anti-American sentiment and anti-freedom sentiment. It's always the same. The pro-Palestinian protesters to me are no different than the BLM or the Antifa. It's all the same group of people, and there's a great percentage of them that are paid to be there, that are organized and paid to be there, Tim. And we're seeing it. And how come Congressman Jamal Bowman, the black congressman from New York, wasn't arrested on obstruction of official business when he purposely pulled the fire alarm to keep a vote from happening in his own building?
That is.
He got a slap on the wrist. And you want to talk about obstruction of official business? He pulled it. He cried fire in a movie theater, and he got a slap on the wrist and said, "Don't do that again."
Right. Well, that's actually a sign that I think what you just pointed out is a really good point, actually. And one of the funniest things is when they had the Supreme Court hearing on the 16th about the obstruction charge. I believe it was Justice Gorsuch who actually made a reference to what could possibly be considered obstruction under the DOJ's interpretation. And then he asked them, could it include someone pulling a fire alarm and stopping Congress? So I think and he was obviously trolling them, but yeah. I think that's a really good point. I mean, whether it's Black Bloc rioters who are, just burning the country to the ground, or whether it's people in the highest offices of the country, this standard never gets applied to anybody else. So yeah, that's a really good point, and people really need to pay attention to that. It's really this toxic abuse of the law has creeped into every level of our governments, whether it's the state governments and these state trials, or whether it's the federal. The whole system has just been plagued by this. Americans really need to pay attention. They can't just shrug their shoulders. This is a really important thing. You're absolutely right. And again, I promise you, I was with a friend in 2017 in D.C. I saw people rioting just over Trump. I almost missed Trump's parade because of these people. They do this all the time, all over the place. We just don't hear about it because, of course, nobody wants to talk about it. But yeah, they want to burn this country to the ground, and they'll give people a slap on the wrist for it.
Well,
again, they almost burned a federal courthouse to the ground when they were rioting before.
I know.
Nobody cares.
And the Democrats were paying bail for those people because it was all an orchestrated protest. It wasn't about George Floyd. It wasn't about a lack of it, just like these protests on college campuses aren't about Palestine or the treatment of Palestinians. It's about sowing chaos and taking down our society. That's it, plain and simple.
Yeah, it might makes right. Unfortunately, they're the ones with the might, because everyone else wants to be civil and go on about their day.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are more of us than there are of them. I believe that wholeheartedly. So we just need to stand firm where and whenever we can. How can people get in touch with it, Tim? We're out of time.
They can follow me on Twitter. I'm Tim Hale, criminally funny J6er. And, if you want to learn more about the January 6th defendants, you can go to patriotfreedomproject.com.
All right.
I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you. Good stuff. Tim Hale with us. On the Scott Sloan Show, coming up just after 10, Steve Gorham.